My name is Gazi from CHP London. I'm a diehard fan of automation, and you can imagine what is the opposite of it. The topic that I'm going to present is ATDD. Um, so I'm just going to add a letter capital A in front of what my colleague Sarah did, TDD. Um, um, so ATDD, the power of driving the story. So how this power comes, we will see. Um, so in the IT industry, from the last few years, you have noticed there are a lot of buzzwords like DDs came up, like TDD, BDD, ATDD. So and they are making a lot of positive impact on the development processes, um, and they have become very important in the IT industry. So let's see some of them, what they are. CDD, can anybody guess what is CDD stands for here? Absolutely. So it's a cache-driven development. So what is cache-driven development? Um, so when you are taking a feature in your sprint, so you ask questions to your business analyst and to your product owner. How much cash or how much revenue is this feature is actually going to fetch for this company? So why you ask this one? So if you ask that question, then you know the importance of that feature that you're actually developing. So um, and also what happens is, so if you know that which feature or the story that you are developing is going to bring the more revenue, you prioritize based on that one. So the more revenue the story brings, that will be on the priority list on the top. From the business, from top of a business to the bottom of the people like testers and developers, so they're all working one focus. So doing the cash, how much revenue that the is going to bring. So they're all in aligned in one way. So that's a cash-driven development. This is CVDD, so CV-driven development. So what it is basically, when you are coming to choose tools and technologies for your project, what the testers or developers tend to do is your team, instead of choosing the technologies or tools that are most relevant or most suitable to the project or to the feature that you're developing, instead they choose the tools and technologies that are demand in market and that are good for your CV, so which is not good. Can anybody guess what DD is this? So this is a fear-driven development. So, so my colleague Chris in our team, so he drives our development this way, putting a gun on the head of the developer. So this is the first our team doing this one, and if this becomes it works out, then maybe you might write a book on FDD, fear-driven development. Okay, so we had now enough of DDs. Now we come to our actual topic, ATDD, which is acceptance test driven development. Um, Actually, what is ATDD is capturing requirements, pairing with the developers, communication and collaboration. So that's the actual ATDD is, and I will go through each of them in a bit detail. Um, so ATDD is capturing requirements. Sorry. No, stay on that slide. Yeah. So capturing requirements, when you pick up a story in your sprint, capturing requirements is very important process at this stage. So how do you capture the requirements for your story? You ask questions to the customers, which would be in your BS, in your team. So you ask plenty of questions. You drill even minute requirements from them. It is very important to take all the requirements at this stage, because what happens is, say for example, if a customer, if you ask the questions to the customers, so you ask them how about this one, why you are doing this one, and why not this way. If you ask these questions, sometimes the customer, he had something for the product in his mind, and he draws the specification. But then when you actually try to implement at a lower level as a story, then you drill down these minute requirements and you ask the customer these requirements. And when you start asking these questions, then customer sometimes he says, he might say that, I never think about this one actually. That's good. And then he will consider your suggestion, and so to be honest, in our team, it is quite happened a few times basically. So we basically, in the same way, we used to ask questions to our BAs, product owners, and why this need to be done like this, and what's the point of doing this? Why can't do it like this? We ask questions with realistic examples. By giving realistic examples, you need to have the domain knowledge, and then you need to give the realistic examples. And to be honest, our BAs and product owners, there are few occasions where they actually chosen what we proposed rather than what they came up in the first place. So the design in that context has been changed. So you might ask the question. Actually, I'm a tester. I'm a developer. Why I need to ask these low level, business questions? They gave me a specification, and we discussed it enough, and then we implement our code according to the specification. Why we need to ask questions? These kind of minute requirements from them. The point is, um, the every piece of software comes from a business thought. So whatever the business software exists in the world is nothing but a result of a business thought. So you are implementing that business thought into the software. So you are already in the business. So you are in the true business. So you are driving the business. So you need to ask these questions. Another thing is, when you pick up a story to the business analysts and product owners, so you discuss among yourself, and you present different options. Um, and when you present different options, so how about doing this one? How about doing this way? If you ask these questions, they they might change their actual business plans, and then they will choose your option. So what happens is, you are bringing best product to the customer. You're giving a best product to the customer, better than initially what the customer thought. So if you fail to capture these requirements, what happens is, have you heard about the things like building the right product versus building the product right? So building the product right means, say for example, if you build a car, you might have built a fantastic car. There's nothing flaw in it. It works fantastically. It drives fantastically, and then there's absolutely no nothing wrong. But then you present the car to your customer, and then the customer says, "Yeah, I agree. It's a fantastic car, but that's not the one I wanted." You know, so so building the product right is the TDD world, whereas building the right product is the ATDD world. So you validate the acceptance, business acceptance criteria. So that's you are making sure what I am building is the what customer actually wanted. So your development processes might be fantastic. You're following TDD, fantastic. So your integration and continuous delivery is fantastic. But you have not actually make at the beginning you didn't make sure that you're actually building the right thing. So then the customer didn't like it. That you're building, you're not building what customer wanted. So you need to make sure. So what happens is if you miss even some small requirements in when you attempt to implement a story. So if you miss some requirements, what happens is at the middle of your development process or at the end of the project, somewhere you will see that effect. And then when you try to rectify that effect at that point, what happens is it's too expensive. It's expensive and time consuming for the testers, developers, business, and customers. So it's cost everyone. So it is very important. So if you don't capture the requirements right, and you see you get the results which doesn't work. At the end you won't get results that which you haven't expected. So ATDD is communication and collaboration. This is the very important another important concept of ATDD enforces this communication and collaboration. So when you pick up the story, you sit down with the developers um, and with the BAs, and you discuss, and collaboration between the testers and developers is very important. So a tester has written a test. Assume that both tester and developer did a paid programming and they have done a test, and then at some point the test is actually is failing, and so you try to figure out why the test is failing for 2 hours, and then you ask the developer, and developer paired with you, and then he also tried to figure out in 1 hour to find out what's actually happening or to try to fix it. But then there might be a problem with the network, or there might be a problem with the server, and you haven't communicated. In the first place, you spent 2 hours of time trying to find out actually what's happening. But just if you have collaborated with your core team members, just this test is just a glance, and you might, they might say, oh, this is actually, the network problem, or there's a certificate problem, so. The, you need to be communicating constantly with your team members. The other thing is, say for example, you have a team of a few developers and testers, and two of your developers or testers are discussing something. They don't need to, informal discussion. They don't need to give an invitation card for you to to come and join. You just hear the conversation, and you just pop up there, and then you just sit and involve in the conversations and contribute. And that's how all your team will come to a one common understanding. So that's very important thing. So if you don't do that, everyone had their own assumptions in their heads, and they start failing at the end of the sprint, and things doesn't work. And so the communication and collaboration is very important, and ATTD enforces it. So ATTD is pairing with developers. This is very important one. So when the developer and tester sit together, and basically when you pick up a story, the first thing you try to do is you capture your requirements, and then you try to write the test. Just test names. You don't need to write the implementation. And just write a test name. We sit down with the developer, and even you can ask a BA to pair with you for few minutes, to just write the test name, so that it makes perfect sense. In our team, basically, there are some occasions where we actually spent maybe nearly 20-25 minutes just to write down a test name. It's because the every single word that we put in the test is very important, and that is very important because your tests will become a living documentation. You don't need a separate documentation, and that's why it's important that you spend good amount of time just writing your tests in a very readable and the sensible way. The other thing is, when you write these tests, basically test names, what happens is the developer and tester, they have clear understanding of the high level tests, and from the test, say for example, if you're writing a test like a user with a valid credential can log in successfully, so that's assume that's your test name, and when they actually developer and tester pair together to write the test, the developer will get a understanding, and then he gets from the name itself he can write the clauses. Okay, in this test name, there is a clause called login, and there is a clause called credentials validation, and his implementation details will make clear and clear for him. So pairing with the developers is very important. If you observe in IT industry recently, last couple of years, there are the roles of the testers are changing. So if you notice job titles like they are coming up advertising like developer in test developer, and developer test. These kind of titles are coming. So this is changing from the last couple of years. The reason is the tester roles now demanding technical skills to a level to the developer. So it's changing. So the only way a tester can achieve those kind of technical skills is by pairing with them constantly, and by working with them, swapping the hands in coding. So that's the only way he can learn those technologies and skills, and also the test code is no different to a development code, production code. So you need to write your test in a maintainable, very highly designed and robust way. So it's nothing different to the production code. So it is very important, and, to pair with the developers, and ATDD enforces that concept. Um, so now we now know what is ATDD is. So what is actually ATDD is not. ATDD is not writing a test. In the testing world, so the tester think that, any development team thinks that ATDD is about writing a test. No, it's not. ATDD, when you do follow all the ATDD concepts, obviously that becomes a test. But writing a test is itself not a ATDD. ATDD is not using the tools and templates. If somebody comes to the team, if you go to any development, if you ask a question, um, how many, are you doing ATDD? They say, yeah, I'm using, we are using, our team is using, brilliant technology. We're using Cucumber. Cucumber, by the way, Cucumber is a tool that, so, you can specify using that tool in the test names in a readable, human readable format, like given, when, then, that kind of. So the teams will say, yeah, we are using Cucumber, we are using this tool, and we are using, we have a lot of test suits, and but that's not the ATDD. Um, so ATDD is not regression suits. So if somebody asks, how is your testing, how in your team, and say, yeah, we have a bunch of tests, our tests, we have a lot of test suits, and they run on every night, and they are green, they passes, and yeah, great, but that's not the actual ATDD is. So, okay, how to do ATDD in practice? This diagram basically describes the ATDD process. So if you look briefly, so at the beginning, when you pick up a story first, so you write a test, the ATDD acceptance test, and then that doesn't have any implementation. In the next step, you run the test, and initially it will fail, obviously, because no implementation. You make a little change. When I said make a little change, that goes into the TDD world where a developer writes a unit test and he writes the implementation code and comes back. So this is the process diagram for ATDD. I will go through a little bit to detail each of them. Um, rather than explaining the process, this is the process. This is the process we followed in our team, and then I will go through how we did it. So in the first step, add an acceptance test. So what we do is we pick up the story. So we pair with the developer and the BAs. So by the way, I want to tell you one more thing here is in our teams, a developer's machine is no different to a tester machine. So every single tool and technology or languages, anything that a developer has, the tester will have the same thing. So it's no difference. The reason because is what happens is when we pick up the story, we sometimes go to the tester's machine to actually implement, and sometimes we go to the developer machine to implement. So that's how we do. So when we pick up the story, we pair with the developer and tester, on the machine, and then we write the acceptance test. Basically, we spend some time to actually, making the test name looks good, and we run the acceptance test. Obviously, it will fail because there is no implementation code. And we make a little change. So when I say make a little change, what will happen is it goes into the TDD world where the developer writes a unit test, and then once the unit test is right, then as my colleague Sarah mentioned, so a test, a little bit code just to make the test pass, and then run the acceptance test, and the test should pass. If it doesn't pass, fix either in the acceptance test or fix in the unit test and the implementation code and run again. Right. So that's basically how we do the acceptance test. And so acceptance test. So you have seen the power of doing the acceptance test, and now with the great power comes great responsibility. So you need to have these things. Shared ownership. So the team should have a shared ownership, so that if a test fails, it shouldn't be like it's a responsibility of the tester, but it's actually the responsibility of the whole team. Because in the ATDD Agile, we did everything as a team, and if something goes wrong, the team is responsible. So and then if a tester is not in the office, or if tests start failing, so you can't say, oh, the tester is not in we can't really do anything, or we can't fix. It shouldn't be. So it is a team responsibility, and team did together, and team should be owning this. Understands the feature. So what happens is ATTD by doing because whole team has the same understanding, because they discuss together and they pay it with the developers, so that they have a common understanding. Ensures building the right product. So when you follow ATTD, it ensures you are building the right product. As I said before, so you capture the requirements, you pair with the developers, you communicate and collaborate, and that makes then it makes sure that you are building the right product. Productivity increases because when the tester and developer is pairing, they have a single focus and common understanding, And because you are writing the acceptance test names, and you're discussing while writing the test names, and then developer is very clear actually what classes he need to make, what controllers he need to make, and how to how to make a relationship between those classes, what validation things you need to do. These things will become very clear to the developer, and that's how the productivity increases. Achieves quality. So because you are squeezing the customer, or maybe when I say customer, BAs and product owners, to get all the minute requirements, and you are making sure that you're building the right product. So by doing so, your code will be very less prone to errors, bugs. So that brings a high quality code. Makes living documentation. So, as I said before, we spend even few minutes to actually write the name of the test, and thus because that that makes the living documentation. You don't need a separate documentation, and helps customers. So with all these things, when you follow the ATDD process, you're helping the customer. So you are building a product that exactly what customer wanted, and if you follow ATDD strictly, then you will be building a product that's actually even a little bit better than actually the customer wanted. You're making customer happy. So yeah, that's it.
Have we had any post-its?
I've not had.
Has anybody been writing any topics that they want to discuss? Anybody else handed in stuff to you?
Three?
So we've got three.
People have more questions.
Okay, so we've got three topics.
TDD or...
Sorry?
So I'm sure people have more questions. Doesn't have to be about TDD or...
So they're not necessarily good ideas either, they're just ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, should we go with them then? So if we very quickly, let's have a look what the topics are. Oh, we've got four.